Good evening, you're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Officials ease more COVID measures, including the dropping of vaccine pass checks at some premises. A business leader says Hong Kong will be sending a strong message to the world if it adopts a 0+0 system. And a journalist is jailed for insulting the national anthem, becoming the first person to be convicted for the offence. Inspections of vaccine passes will be scrapped for some premises from next Thursday, but health officials said mask wearing will still be mandatory. Joanna Ho reports.
Anyone going to public wet markets from next Thursday will no longer have their vaccine pass checked. Other premises that will be exempted include religious venues, barbershops and hair salons, game centers and mahjong parlors. The so-called passive checks will also apply to the non-catering areas of cinemas, theme parks and clubhouses. So those with an amber health code will not be barred. Outdoor recreation facilities and government campsites that have been closed for the past 2 years will reopen. People will also be allowed to eat and drink at performance venues, outdoor areas at spectator stands in sports premises and race courses. But wearing masks will still be part of everyone's lives.
Even in outdoor, the ventilation is better. We still to actually insert some kind of protection for the individuals and for the public. So for the mask mandate, at the current moment, is not a consideration to take it or to remove it. We still will actually have the mask mandate until the control of the pandemic or control of the disease is much better.
Lee emphasized studies have shown that scrapping the mask mandate will lead to a COVID rebound. Hong Kong today logged 5,697 new COVID infections, 495 of which were imported. There were 8 fatalities. Hospitals admitted another 269 patients who contracted the virus, taking the tally to 1,991. 10 patients are in intensive care. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
There have been more calls to introduce a 0+0 arrangement, with one business leader saying this will signal to the world that Hong Kong has fully opened up. The city's chief executive meanwhile said officials are continuing to find room for further relaxation. Taking to the airwaves this morning, Alan Shi, president of the Chinese Manufacturers Association of Hong Kong, called on the government to fully open up the city by launching the 0+0 arrangement. Shi said the Amber Health Code under the current 0+3 system is inconvenient to foreign business people, as it bars them from eating out during their first 3 days here. His suggestions included creating an eating area in major exhibition venues for foreign arrivals. She said some overseas business people he has been in contact with misunderstood the current 0+3 system, thinking they have to be quarantined for 3 days on arrival. He felt that without a 0+0 arrangement, the impression would be that Hong Kong hasn't reopened for business completely. She noted that 80% of the population are already triple jabbed. Speaking at the opening of the Asia Summit on Global Health today, Chief Executive John Lee said the government is continuing to explore ways to lift restrictions.
We are working on specific and dedicated plans to ensure major events and economic activities can be held smoothly, to open up Hong Kong, to bring a world of business back to Hong Kong as quickly and as safely as we can.
Lee cited the Global Health Forum, last week's Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit, and FinTech Week as welcome examples. An online journalist has been jailed for 3 months for insulting the national anthem during the screening of an Olympic medal ceremony at a Kwun Tong Mall in July last year. Paula Leung, aged 42, admitted waving the British Hong Kong flag when local fencer Edgar Cheung was awarded the gold medal. Leung was the first to be convicted under the National Anthem Ordinance. In mitigation, Leung expressed regret. The defendant suffered from autism and is living on a disability allowance. Acting Principal Magistrate Amy Chan criticized Leung for conspiring to disparage the anthem, to arouse emotions and risk violence. The number of illicit cigarettes confiscated by custom officers so far this year is up 30% from a year ago. In two recent seizures, 44 million cigarettes worth $120 million were found in containers, Fifi Choi reports.
Customs officers intercepted a container lorry near Chan Phai Road in Ting Yi on October 31st. And found about 10.5 million suspected illicit cigarettes. While following up on the case, they discovered another 11.7 million cigarettes in a second container. A driver and a porter were arrested. On the following day, officers searched a container yard near Lam Tay in Tuen Mun and uncovered 22.2 million suspected illicit cigarettes inside two containers. The value of the two seizures was $120 million. The Customs Department believes the smugglers were hoping to evade law enforcement officials because of the bad weather before the number 8 storm signal was raised last week. The number of illicit cigarettes seized so far this year stands at 554 million, up 30% from the same period last year. Ngai Cha-hin of the Customs Revenue Crimes Investigation Bureau warns that any person found guilty of importing or exporting unmanifested cargo faces a fine of up to $2 million and 7 years in jail. Fifi Choi, HKIBC.
A 70-year-old woman has told police that she was cheated of $14 million in a telephone scam. The victim received several telephone calls in September from a person pretending to be a government official and at other times a law enforcement officer. The caller accused the victim of breaching COVID rules and being linked to a criminal case on the mainland. The woman was persuaded to provide her bank and personal information. She found $14 million missing from her account this month. Overseas, vote counting is continuing in a handful of constituencies in the U.S. midterm elections. The Democrats and Republicans each have 48 seats in the Senate, while 8 more wins will give the Republicans control of the House of Representatives.
Some results are not expected to be announced until next week, as ballots are still being counted. But there's relief in the White House because the predicted red wave Republican sweep did not happen, despite widespread voter discontent with soaring inflation. President Joe Biden described it as a good day for democracy and invited his Republican rivals to work with them, though not at any cost.
I want to be very clear. I'm not going to support any Republican proposal that's going to make inflation worse. For example, the voters don't want to pay higher prescription costs for drugs. We've cut that now. We're going to kick into gear next year, next calendar year. And I'm not going to walk away from the historic commitments we just made to take on the climate crisis.
Biden also vowed not to change direction in his foreign policy and confirmed that he will go to next month's G20 summit in Bali, where it's likely that he will meet President Xi Jinping at a time when Sino-US ties are at an all-time low. With Democrats and Republicans having 48 seats each in the Senate, the battle for the final 4 slots will be crucial. Georgia holds the key with a runoff next month between incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker, his Republican challenger. Walker has been accused of paying for a former girlfriend's abortion a decade ago. The first round was tight, and neither man crossed the 50% mark for an outright victory.
Elon Musk has suspended work from home and asked Twitter employees to return to office. In an email, Twitter's new owner told his staff that he expects them to be at their desks for at least 40 hours a week. The world's richest man also cancelled an extra day off every month, a practice which was launched during the pandemic. Shortly after buying the social media giant for $44 billion, Musk fired nearly 50% of the workforce. Casinos in Macau continued their losing streak in the third quarter, with Wynn Macau and Galaxy Entertainment reporting extended net losses because of strict COVID curbs. But Wynn Macau's president expects a rebound when mainland tour groups return to the gambling hub. Chloe Feng reports.
An outbreak of COVID and the curbs that followed forced the closure of casinos for 12 days, resulting in a deepening of net losses for operators in the third quarter. Wynn Macau, a subsidiary of U.S.-based Wynn Resorts, reported a net loss of $242 million in the 3 months ending in September. That was lower than the $270 million deficit in the second quarter. But it was much larger than the loss of about $180 million a year earlier. Its operating revenue, meanwhile, fell by nearly 63% year-on-year to $115.6 million. The group's new chief executive, Craig Billings, however, noted what he called encouraging pockets of demand during the week-long National Day break. Its VIP business turnover was slightly above the pre-pandemic level, while retail tenant sales reached 74% of 2019's capacity.
I think you've seen pretty reasonable retail sales in Macau, given it's more accessible than Hong Kong. The demand has to go somewhere, and so we weren't surprised to see an uptick in direct VIP growth in light of the market having no junkets.
Wynn Macau President Ian Michael Coughlin predicted a rebound in coming months as mainland authorities have reactivated e-visas for Macau, enabling tour groups to resume operations as early as this month. Galaxy Entertainment, meanwhile, saw its third quarter revenue shrinking to $2 billion, down 52% year-on-year, 16% lower from the previous quarter. The firm stressed that its balance sheet remains liquid and healthy, but admitted that the epidemic could weigh on future results. Galaxy stocks ended the day 1.7% lower, while Wynn Macau lost 1.5%. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 277 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $5.40, Alibaba down $3. Kuaishou down $3.75, BYD Company down $9. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euros at 7.81, pounds at 8.93, and Australian dollar at 5.01. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is down 2 points. On to the weather now. It will be pleasant with lots of sunshine. Temperatures will range between 23 and 28 degrees. The nice weather will continue for the next couple of days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Good night.